Hi, guys. Well, welcome back for me. I took a week off on vacation, and I hope that it comes back with some positive notes for you guys to allow for growth and benefit for our business grow forward. So if you guys have any questions as we go through here, please chime them into the chat box, and I will do my best to try and make sure that I catch them, and then we go from there. But as we get started, guys, today we're going to be talking about why it is that you need to be paying attention so much to your schedule, because this is one of those things that people oftentimes don't get used to using until later in their career. And this is something that it took a long time for me to actually make the commitment that my schedule had to be paramount at all times. It had to be the thing that kept me at top of mind authority all the time. And it's what allows me to run multiple businesses, to be successful in multiple businesses, and then at the same token, to also enjoy my family, to make sure that I could be there during family time, family events, make sure that I could take my kids to swimming practice and coach them in soccer and all these other things. To allow that to happen, I had to be successful with my day-to-day operation and how I work that. So what are some of the things that I've put into action, some of the things that I've seen other people put into action, and what are some of those things that actually are successful in keeping us on token with our schedule, keeping focused on our schedule, and that way we can see value in every day how we move things forward. So let me move over to a different screen here real quick and see if this works. All right. Today we're going to kind of make a move in a conversation that talks about the idea of how to maximize your schedule. So we are in a lead generation business. Now, we've said this many a time. But if we're not paying attention to our leads, if we're not paying attention to the fact that leads need to be coming in at all times, we are going to lose our business. We are going to be out of real estate in no time flat. Because if we're focused on this idea of sales, which this is an unfortunate part about our business, our license is labeled as a sales agent license, oftentimes in many states. And because it's labeled as that, we tend to think of ourselves as salespeople. The truth of the reality is that I don't think in the 15 years I've been in the real estate that I've ever sold a person a house. What I've done is I've helped facilitate the house that they chose of their liking, that they made that decision. People make decisions on purchasing homes within 30 seconds of walking in. They know if they like it or if they hate it. And you can oftentimes see this in the expression on their face or in just the demeanor that they actually walk into the property with. So understanding that is key, but that's another whole training by itself. Today, we're going to talk about the fact that you're not selling them the property. All you are is getting as many leads down your pipeline so you can help facilitate a sale of a property to your client. Now that's going to start out with that leads. And remember, we're talking about schedule today. So why am I bringing up leads first? Is because I truly believe that this is something that we need to focus on. When we're operating, we need to operate on the basis of prospecting. Okay, so what should you be using as far as a timeline for prospecting, and what does prospecting actually mean? So does that mean you're calling people cold? Does it mean you're calling expireds? Does it mean you're calling for sale by owners? Does it mean you're calling old clientels? Does it mean you're doing any of these things? It actually means that you're doing all of these things. But it has to suit you. It has to fit your behavior, and it has to mean something to you. Everybody has a variant of what they actually love doing and what they actually don't love doing. So make sure that you're enjoying what you're doing every day by the token of how you actually operate it day by day and hour by hour when you're working on. So most agents tend to want to work a Monday through Friday, right? And they want to work a basis of 8 to 5, right? Because that is what we are inherently built into as Americans, that is the ideal schedule, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And that works, and it can work in the business of real estate at a certain point in your career. Once you've defined the systems and laid out the platform to make it successful, then that definitely can work. You can work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. But in the beginning of a transaction, or depending on how you decide to work, or what type of client you decide to work with, you may need to work with this a little bit and understand that maybe your time that you make your own as a real estate agent may need to be at different times of the day. So maybe operating at a basis of a 7 to maybe say something like a 10 o'clock in the morning for prospecting, right? And then from there, once you prospect, taking that in, maybe taking a long lunch or taking a midday break to kind of break off the monotony of prospecting and go out and take care of some personal business, take care of something that you need for your kids, for your spouse, go to lunch with your spouse, whatever it might be, but separating that basis and then coming back and maybe doing something a little later in the day. And the reason I say this is because a lot of times when we're doing things like prospecting, we are not realizing, or maybe we are, but we're not putting it into action, that we may be calling clients outside of the time that they may be available, because they may be at work and they're not going to respond to a phone call when you actually call them up. So these are things that we need to actually pay attention to when we're thinking about what schedule are we going to do. The key to this is making sure that your schedule is defined. So this is as simple and as difficult as you make it, okay? So first part, you need to define what you're looking for. So our goal here is to make sure that we have a page defined for what our timeline is, right? So I'll just walk you through basically my day, okay? So in my day, my wake up is right in the basis of about 6:30, okay? So I wake up at 6:30. I get up, I do a little workout. I kind of just clear my mind. I usually read a quick, snippet on Inman or get a little basis of what's going on. Okay, and then I'm moving on, and I got to drop my kids off at 7:30. Okay, so between that 6:30 and 7:30 time frame, we're getting kids ready. We're getting all that stuff ready to happen. Now, once that actually transpires, the next thing that's going to happen is we're going to go ahead and try and figure out how do I get into a prospecting mode, right? So I try to be on the desktop or doing something for prospecting at about 8 o'clock. Now, mine has moved a little bit into agent recruit more so than actual operating in the base of prospecting, but my agents are still. So at 8 o'clock, prospecting needs to kick off. We start moving and operating in that basis, okay? So at 8 o'clock, things are starting to happen. We're starting to communicate with people. Now from 8 to 9 starts training, okay? Now this is in my case. What I would do at this 9 o'clock hour is I'd start to kick your actual prospecting into high gear. So making sure you're writing out letters, making sure you're doing all these other items that are going to be valuable to your business, okay? Now, once that starts to happen, then I rotate into about, my day actually now starts to kick off at about 10:30 whenever my prospecting and training are starting to actually finish up with my team. So at 10:30, that's when I go into high gear for how I'm going to actually start to communicate with other people. Now, my dynamic and my perspective has been different now because I'm going after agents. So at 10:30 is a perfect time for me to enter in, starting to communicate with agents. Whereas when we're talking with clients, my day started much earlier for the prospecting, and I'd take a midday break for that purpose, because you got to realize what kind of clientele you're working on. So in a perfect world, let's talk a normal agent running and trying to get their business off the ground. I'm going to go way back when, to about 15 years ago when I got into the business. What did my day look like? So 7 o'clock, I was at the office, okay? Can you tell them to chill? So I was at the office, okay? 7 o'clock at the office. At that basis, at 7 o'clock, basically the next step is that I started to actually trim out and pull out all expireds, okay? So by 7:30, I was actually calling expireds, okay? Now, I actually really enjoyed expireds. Not everybody enjoys expireds. You can start calling your clients at this time too, but at 7:30, I started calling expireds because I felt like that was the time when things could actually start happening and I might beat some of the people to the table. So at 7:30, I'd called through all the expireds by about 8:15 that day. At 8:15, I had actually started to write letters to expireds, okay? So at that point, I started to actually send out letters to expireds. Now, I called them. Now I'm going to follow up with a letter, something of value in their inbox that they're going to receive maybe in a day or two. That way I had that extra route. The next step I went into is at about 8:30, I started actually going and looking at new inventory. Okay. Now, this is one of those values that I think a lot of people don't pay attention to. So new inventory is something that I think agents today in today's market don't pay attention to. They don't look at it. They may see it on MLS, but they don't actually physically get out and look at it. It is very difficult for you to supply inventory to your client if you haven't actually seen it in person, because you can't give any representation other than what the pictures or the virtual tour are giving to your client anyway. So what is the value for you to be in the transaction if you're not providing value to them? So looking at new inventory was my 8:30. I started going out, looking at inventory, looking at everything that I possibly could. That usually ended at around 9:30 to 10, depending on what time I was at. And then I got back into prospecting. So at this point, I started to call other clientele, past clientele, or people that I knew in my sphere. And that way I started to open up that dialogue. So that ran from about 10 to 12. And that was just calling my database, okay? Or in my case, my data bank, because I believe that we should always think of it as a data bank. Now, from that 10 to 12, I'm pretty much prospecting all the way from 7 in the morning all the way to about 12 in the midday. And that's when I'm going to actually start booking out some of these appointments. Now, my goal back in the day was to operate at least 2 to 3 appointments per day, every day. And I'm going to book those in those timelines from that 7 o'clock hour up to that midday hour every single day. And that's what we need to operate, is that my day looked like this every day, but it had specifics built into it. So I would tell myself that I'm going to call all my expireds. But when I'm actually looking at new inventory, I'm going to tell myself I'm going to look at 5 of these 10 new houses that are on market. I'm going to take pictures of them. I'm going to email them to my clients. When I'm calling my data bank, I'm going to tell myself how many calls. So setting your schedule is the first key, but then you need to actually build out from that. Next method is, once you have your schedule set, you need to define what it means so you know where you're winning your successes. Okay, guys, this is a long base kind of concept, but you have to think about it in a very simple mindset. And that is that you are going to work every day to be successful at what you do and how you operate. And if you do that, the rest is easy, and it kind of comes pretty smooth into what's going on. I apologize, my screen went kind of haywire on me. There we go. And bring myself back up. So what I'm trying to get at is, a lot of times people don't focus on their schedule, and they don't focus on how to make themselves the most effective them. So the key here is just simply writing it down, assigning when you're going to do certain things, and not deviating from that. If you have something that needs to be worked out at that point, make sure you're spending the time and the effort and the energy. And don't get the whirlwind that comes in and tries to steal that time away from you, because it will happen every single day of your entire career if you allow it. The only way for it not to happen is for you to focus, keep your ideas and focus point at all times on the right thing, and that is generating as many leads as you possibly can. Now remember, everybody has a different thing that they enjoy to do. Some people don't enjoy making phone calls to expired. Some people don't enjoy calling FSBOs. Some people don't enjoy calling their past clientele. Find methods to work around what you don't enjoy, so that way you do enjoy it and you can be successful at it. Guys, I appreciate you kind of joining me today. I know this was kind of little, off the beaten path, but I need people to pay attention to the fact that they need to pay attention to their schedule. They need to think about how their schedule works for them, rather than the schedule making them work at whatever is going on in that particular basis. You have to think about what you're doing every day before you actually start it. We tend to be very reactive as a human element, whereas we need to be very proactive in how we move forward. So just remember that. Don't be reactive, be proactive in how you do things every single day. And the key to that is planning. No matter what book you read, they really break down one simple thing. If you block your schedule, if you set your schedule, and then if you define what you're going to do during that schedule, you'll be successful. It's a simple note of it. Guys, enjoy. I hope it helps a little bit, just to kind of give you a feeling of how to keep yourself on focus. And best wishes. Of every time you need anything, please don't hesitate. Give me a call anytime. I am here to try and help you through any basis, just free content anytime. So enjoy. See you guys later.